ξεκινήσουμε σιγά σιγά. Θα παρακαλούσα να κλείσουμε την πόρτα, αν είναι δυνατόν. Μπορούμε να ξεκινήσουμε. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Dear guests, welcome to Greece. And after that, I would like to welcome you to this satellite symposium of the 8th seminar of the Hellenic Society of Blood Transfusion with the attractive title, Planning the Modern Transfusion Service, the European Experience. The symposium has two different lectures which will be given by expert speakers. The issues are very important and topical for us in view of the imminent consolidation of our transfusion service. So we have the privilege of questions after the end of both lectures. So let's start with the first lecture under the title, The Need for Consolidation in the Blood Bank to Assure an Efficient Lean Process, which will be given by Dr. Graham McCurdy. Graham McCurdy is Director Laboratory Solution Design of Abbott Laboratories in Europe area, responsible for international projects. He has worked in laboratory medicine within the NHS in Edinburgh for more than 10 years. Then he moved into the medical diagnostic industry, where he has worked in the sales arena for more than 25 years through 3 different completely multinational diagnostic companies. He has joined Abbott 14 years ago as an immunochemistry product specialist, moving through several positions to the one he has now. He has personally completed more than 100 pathway lean projects in many countries, and he has also worked with many national blood bank managers to help with consolidation. Dr. Graham McCurdy, excuse me, please take the podium.
Thank you. Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Yes? Do I need to shout louder? Usually I don't use a microphone because my voice is too loud. I have a problem, is that I don't speak any Greek. Okay?
No problem.
I have a second problem. English is my second language because I'm not from England, I'm from Scotland.
Yes.
Okay? And there is a huge difference because at the moment we are fighting for independence, so we're going to get there very soon. My presentation today will take probably 25 to 30 minutes, but my visit to Greece so far has been, this is all I've seen, because I arrived last evening at midnight. I looked out my bedroom window and I saw this photograph. I have seen nothing else since. So the beautiful sunshine outside is mystifying to me, as I haven't seen sunshine in Scotland for 12 months. So hopefully we'll get through this and we'll get to the area that we want to cover. What I really want to talk to first is, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Do we consolidate first and then look at process improvements, or do we look at process improvements and then consolidate? Well, my thought process here is that if you consolidate a bad process, all you get is a bad process mess. So you really got to look at how can I fix and how can I become more efficient before we start to look at consolidation. How do we look at that and what do we do about that? Hopefully you'll pick up as we go through. But it's a chicken and egg example of where we need to go. If you ask your senior management, the people at the CEO level, the people at the CFO level, what they are looking for, where do they see their business, where do they see their problems? Their problems are, I have to reduce cost. Everywhere. Doesn't matter where you are in healthcare. All healthcare has a problem. There isn't any finance going into it. Doesn't matter if you're in Greece, Italy, Spain, the UK, makes no difference. Healthcare is being asked to deliver higher quality, more of the same thing, but do it for less money and do it for a better way of understanding. We have to decrease the costs and the input that we have. We have to improve the operational efficiencies. We have to look at things in a different way. If we look at the economics of value, we all work within an ecosystem that helps us understand we are not working in isolation. In your working establishments as you have it at the moment, you will have trapped cash. You will have hidden cash that is in there, in the system, in the process, that you need to find. Because you have things missing. You have no money to work with, so you need to find the money that's there. We need to look at how can we increase the value of what you actually do. If I asked you a question, how much does a bag of blood given to a patient actually cost you today? How many people in the room would know how much a bag of blood delivered to a patient actually costs you? Anyone? Anyone apart from Ian, who works in the UK. How much does a bag of blood that you take from the donation, give to the recipient, how much does that cost you in total? I'm in one country. I'm here. So how much does it cost you here in Greece?
There are different estimates. Range from 200 to 400 or 500.
Okay, I'm going to use my lean questioning here. Why?
Because people calculate things in different ways.
My next question, why? You'll see where I'm coming from. I ask the question why until I get the understanding of. I know that in some countries now, in the UK being one of them, they know exactly how much it costs per bag of blood. From here to here, the exact costs. In Germany, they know exact costs. In Spain, they know exact costs. We need to look at how do we understand these costs and how do we get the value to the people we're giving it to and how do we make more of it. How can we release some of the hidden money that we've got? We do things in our process that we do because we've always done it that way. It was the way we did it 20 years ago, and it's the way we'll continue to do it. My question is, you must ask why. Why am I doing that? Because there is this trapped cash in your process that you need to find before you look at consolidation. Remembering that everything you do is based around a patient, but you're not in isolation. Everything within the healthcare ecosystem has an effect on transfusion. Everything that happens, whether it be the patient goes for surgery, the patient goes to ER because they've had a car incident or whatever, all affects your business. And it's how you respond to that, how you work to that, will help you understand what you need to do in the future and how we need to work together to make this all happen. Excuse me. The healthcare challenge is to balance out all the different recipients of where we want to go and what kind of things we need to do. Because there is an infinite pot of money that we've got to work with, and we have to use it wisely. We have to use it in the best way possible to make sure that we can deliver a top-grade service across every area that we look at. So what is process improvement? How do we look at process improvement and how do we help? Everyone's heard of ISO 9001. Everybody hears of ISO. I get a plumber to come and fix my sink. He's from Poland, but he states an ISO 9001 number. ISO means that I've got the paperwork to prove that I can do what I can do. Doesn't actually mean that I do it properly, it just means I do it 100% the same way every single time. But to look at processing to make it more effective, to make it more efficient, to make things work better, we've got two new systems. When these were Six Sigma and Lean. And with both of these, we look at how do we make a process more efficient. How can we fix the things we've done, because they've always been done that way, and make it an easier to run system. If you look at different things across the different areas of laboratories, Everyone's looking for cost reduction. Everybody's trying to save money. Everybody's tied in, handcuffed into regulation. The regulations are getting tougher and tougher and tougher. I keep asking Ian and the guys in the UK and other NHS or BT services across Europe, when I introduce new legislation, do I remove the old stuff that it supersedes? The answer is no. What happens is I get the new legislation and I add it to the legislation that's already there. Lean talks about 5 questions, and the 5 questions are why, and why. And if you don't get an answer to these 5 whys of why have I still got the old regulations on top of the new regulations, you need to ask the governments and the senior people developing these procedures, why are you giving me these new regulations if you don't help with the other ones? I don't know what it's like here in Greece, but recruitment and retention of staff across Europe is very, very difficult, especially qualified staff. We're all in this room, fairly many of us in this room. There are a few that are getting closer to retirement to the day we started in the lab, okay, in our profession. Where are the people coming through to replace us? Have a look at the room. Have a look at the age group of the people sitting next to you. There is no feed through of what we do. So we have to look at different things. We have to look at the quality and how we do things, and we need to look at a different way. We need to work smarter, not harder. We all work very hard at the moment, and we go home in the evening stressed. We are very unhappy in our workplace because we are overworked and we're stressed. So we need to think of how can we fix this and make it better. There is one caveat that comes out in every part of healthcare that I've ever looked at. It must be faster, it must be cheaper, it must be better. Actually, that goes against everything. You can't have cheap and fast. You can't have better and cheap. It's a conundrum, but that's what we're being asked for. We're being asked to do that. And you can see here, good service is cheap, won't be fast. And this can be for absolutely anything that you do and how you do things. We have to look at and remember the place the patient plays in our whole scenario. It may be difficult to understand if you are not patient-centric, that at the end of the day, we're taking from a donor patient and we're giving it to a recipient patient. But what are the steps in between? Well, how do we manage that, and how do we get all that into our standard operating procedures, and how do we move it forward? It is a difficult situation. We all have many, many, many challenges, and this can be for any lab, not just transfusion. Everywhere we work is that we must look at modernisation, we must have accreditation, we must have budgetary management. Our population is increasing, not just the population of the people working in laboratories, but the population in general is increasing. So therefore, we live longer, we are having different diseases, different testing regimes. The older we get, the more testing we get done, the more blood we need to receive, and so on and so on and so on. So this is not going to get easier, it's going to get more difficult. And we need to find different ways of working to make this all happen. And you as managers have got a juggling act with lots of balls in the air that you have to help you get to how you work things. The days of running a laboratory is very, very different from it was when I worked in the laboratory 34 years ago. It is completely different. And the whole way of working and the whole expertise that you have to do here is not linked to what we've done in the past. Believe it or not, there is not one solution that comes in a box and tied up with a pink ribbon. Not even from that particular company here either. It just doesn't exist. You have to look at the whole process and understand what are we doing and why are we doing it. And in looking at measuring, identifying goals and requirements are important to give you the information that you need, because there are many things that cause you pain. There are many things that you do in the laboratory just now that cause you problems and issues because of circumstances and what you've had to do and what you're being left to do as we move forward. But laboratories, I'm sorry to say, has become business. And we are all now in a business. And business needs to be looked after. And the products and everything that we need in a business are people. We cannot run labs without people. We cannot run labs without samples, reagents, premises. All of these things are required as a business proposition to make these things happen, but we have to look at them in a different way. We have to look at the business of transfusion, the business of laboratories. What is it we actually deliver? What are we actually giving? Is it knowledge? Is it a clean blood supply? Is it a guarantee of life? But do we know what we're actually delivering when we look at our laboratory services? Do we know, are we teaching? Are we still teaching? Are we still doing research? We're doing a lot less than we used to do. But this thing needs to be moved forward, because there may become a day where we don't take as many red cells from humans and we use an alternative. Where is the research that's going on in that at the moment? In centres like yourselves. And if you're working under stress, there is no way you're going to do that research, and things will not move forward. But it's all about patient safety, and it's all about the fact is that the whole thing now has to be run as a business. Looking at businesses, you get a raw material, a tube, a bag of blood, whatever it is, and at the end you get an output, a bag of blood, and a specification that says this is okay to be transfused. That's your process. But you've got two different distinct areas where your customer is demanding things quicker, faster, shelf life longer, a whole range of different things. But your process doesn't allow that to happen because it's holding things up. It's causing problems. So these two things here are like two magnets trying to push together. And the more you try to get to this medium ground along the middle, the harder it becomes, the more difficult it becomes. So you have to look at, how does my process actually work? And look at manipulating this to get closer to this and let the magnets repel less. Lean and Six Sigma has been in healthcare for quite some time. It's not just linked to car manufacturing or mobile phone manufacturing. Lean and Six Sigma is used in every area of healthcare that you can think about. There is not one that's exempt from using Lean and Six Sigma. There is lots and lots of papers and identifications that show this is a problem. It's all about improving what we do. It's all about making things better in a systematic way. But the benefits of doing this are written in publications across the globe. There are many, many different things that we can do. We can look at different things in different areas, but the main ones are we have financial savings. We increase the quality by becoming more compliant and having the processes streamlined. These are some new studies that have been sent out by, again, it's from the UK, because I get a lot of my information from the UK. This is a new thing that the improvement group, the NHS Improvement Diagnostics Group, have put together. This is 120 pages of different Lean and Six Sigma projects across different areas, with many transfusion examples in here. How can I make the transfusion process better? How can I reduce the trauma to both the donor and the transfusion? And linked in to how we can make things work. There is, and what we'll try and do is we'll make sure that you get this website address should you wish to get this publication and have a look at it in more detail. But it's very, very new. It was only published and sent out this week. So this is very appropriate information that I've been managing to get. But this is, for me, is completely alien. I hear you say, Lean and Six Sigma, I have no idea what you're talking about. It's something that it's very strange. Well, actually, you all do Lean and Six Sigma at home, and you just don't know about it. I guarantee that every gentleman's garage knows exactly where to find a specific screwdriver to do that specific job. Ladies and gentlemen, I reckon in your kitchen you are able to find every herb and every spice to make anything that you want at the fingertips. That's Lean and Six Sigma. That's how you set that up. You do it all at home, and why and how do you not do it in your work environment? And that is the area that we are looking for. As Abbott as a whole, we run a service that looks at all of these and helps you understand where and what to look for and where to start the journey, because Lean and Six Sigma is a journey. It's a journey you've got to start and then continue. If I tell you that Toyota started this way back in 1957, running Lean and Six Sigma in their manufacturing plant, and to this day they're still striving for perfection. They're still trying to find a better way of doing it, and this is the ideology. The way that Abbott work is that we take lots of information and we help you derive what the problems and issues are. Where do we see the obstacles? Where do we see the main areas of non-value added? How do we know this works? Well, we've done this on numerous occasions. We've done it in different countries and we're still doing it to this day. And we originally started this in the UK, long before any consolidation, long before anything about looking at different ways of doing the system in the UK. We looked at how can we make the labs themselves more efficient? How can we really get them to do things in a more even, more productive manner? And we even took them through the old version to a completely new build, where it started off as just a bare shell built in Filton. And the next speaker is going to cover this in much more detail, because that's him here with a hard hat, the glasses, and the bright fluorescent jacket. What do you do and how you do it is very important when you move forward. How do you lay out your laboratory? How do you lay out your instruments? That is also very important. Sometimes we just put instruments because that's the space that's been left us. I'm sorry, I'm going to mention a lab I was in this morning. I was taken to a lab this morning in central Athens, and this lab decided to place this very large piece of equipment in a corner in the laboratory, nowhere near where it's going to be used. Why? It's because that's where it would fit in through the doors. And that was the only place they had left to put it in. But it's not where it would be used, so it's totally useless. So you've got to think about, how do I set up my laboratory so everything flows in one direction? Lean is all about process and flow and making things work in that direction. So this makes life easier. If it is easy, this is what you get. Happy, smiley faces. And everybody is going home less stressed and more relaxed after the day's work. We are still working in different areas. I'm working at the moment in Scotland. Scotland at the moment is fragmented. You've got two different bespoke transfusion centres, one on the east coast, one on the west coast, and they don't speak to each other. There is a length of freeway between the two, and they just love both ends because they don't want to go around it. We've been working with the Finnish Red Cross and in Croatia, and one that's very interesting to me at the moment is I'm working in Kazakhstan. Now, I don't know if any of you know what's happening in Kazakhstan at the moment, but there are at least 5 medics in Kazakhstan who are on trial at the moment for allowing blood to go out which was HIV positive. 7 children died, and now they're up actually for murder because of the way they worked previously. So it's a very emotive subject, but it's one that we're very keen to help them with and try to get them to the next level. So it's really, really important that we move things forward. So we started off, this is one that we looked at, and it was a process in 2 bespoke laboratories. It was 2 bespoke centres not even speaking to each other. That was a real problem and issue, because when the Scottish government decides to change things, they change things in a big way. So what happened was they had to come out with a business case to form one centre, Consolidate. And why did they want to consolidate? Because they've done all the Lean Six Sigma, they've got all the efficiency gains that they could get from looking at the way that they worked, but only by consolidating could they multiply on what they've done previously and some of the other things that they would get. The elimination of duplication of processes. They did exactly the same thing. In actual fact, they had 2 prisms in each site. Not necessary. So they had underutilization of instrumentation. One prism worked one day, the other prism worked the second day, and vice versa. What is the point of doing all that? They had multiple other areas that they had to look at. And there was risk to the blood supply by having this mixture and this fighting between the 2. So the whole thing is about patient safety and looking at consolidation and how we move forward. Another example of this is based in Ireland, where it's one single centre. It's a small centre, I agree. It's not as big as Greece, but the benefits that they got from centralisation, bringing everything together, was massive. Because, I don't know, as I said earlier, this whole thing that we do now is a business. And we have to have a brand, and we have to have an image. And just like Coca-Cola and Apple and all others, our image is what the customer at the end of the day, the person who's going to give us the blood sees. And that's what we need to sell the service, to sell our business, to make it happen. Hopefully, in the so many minutes I've taken, you've understood that to look at this whole thing, before you look at consolidation, you'd have to look at process improvement. There are many examples of consolidation where the process has caused more problems and more harm than good in the way that they've done it. Consolidation adds even further value to the value you get from looking at process improvements and efficiencies. And if you need help, there is a team that I run throughout the whole of Europe that are guaranteed to go in and help you find a problem, an issue with your process. I've yet to be challenged by anyone who says, you can't make my process better, more efficient, more environmentally friendly. So, as you see, today's very sunny, okay? And yesterday was sunny as well. Today, I'm unsure. I'm not sure if consolidation is the way forward for the Greek transfusion service. I'm unsure of what I'm going to do or how I'm going to fit in. Tomorrow is going to be thunder and lightning when I realise what is happening and what needs to happen to make this all work. But after tomorrow, the sun will come out again and will be nice and shiny and will be beneficial to everyone in this room. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the interesting presentation. The question will be given after the end of the second lecture. Let's move to the next presentation under the title Consolidation of Blood Service, the NHS Blood and Transplant Experience, which will be given by Dr. Ian Reeves. Ian Reeves is National Strategy Manager for testing for NHS blood and transplant. He has worked for the English Blood Transfusion Service since 1977. In this time, he has worked in most areas of the service in Cambridge before becoming the manager of the testing laboratory in Brentwood. He then became the national specialist for NAT screening before taking up his current role in 2004. Please, Dr. Reeves, take the podium and go on with your presentation.
It's going to work, yes it is. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for staying so late. It's nice to see so many in the room. Like Graham, I'm not very used to standing behind one of these things with a microphone. I'm normally trying to wander around, so I'll try and stop here. And also, like Graham, I don't speak any Greek, so I do apologise. But what I do is speak English, not Scottish, so hopefully you'll understand me. If I do get a bit excited, and I do tend to speak a bit quick, so if I do speak too quickly and you don't understand me, stop me and I'll try and slow down, okay? So firstly, have you heard, I've worked in the National Blood Service. It's NHS Blood and Transplant is our new title, which was a few years ago, for an awful long time, 36 years. It seems longer sometimes, but I've been through all the pain that you guys are going to go through. I heard today, I was very lucky to go and visit your transfusion centre in Athens today and learned that consolidation is a very hot topic. Lots of discussion, lots of worry. So what I'll try and do is just give you a little bit of experience that we've been through and hopefully come out the other end and hopefully reassure you that it's not going to be that difficult and it will work. Trust me. Trust me, I'm a scientist. I'm actually not a doctor, but I'm a scientist. But there you go. Okay. Firstly, to start off with, consolidation is very difficult. It is change. Change is very difficult for all of us. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the works of E.E.M, Winnie the Pooh. I won't go through this, but change, I found this really interesting part in there. Change, it's about Edward Bear coming down the stairs. Every single day he came down the stairs and it hurt like hell, which is what we do all day. We come into work and it hurts like hell. We're stressed out when we go home. And he keeps thinking, there must be an easier way of doing this. As long as someone would stop and let me think about it and do it. So I think that, just to set the scene, what we need to do is maybe think about things before we start doing and work through change and through change management. So that's my first joke. It's probably my only one, and it's probably not a very good one, but there you go. Just a little bit of background to the NHSBT. As I said, it's formed of 2 units. One is the National Blood Service, and that's concerned with the collection, the processing, the testing and the distribution to hospitals of blood components, tissues, stem cells, you name it, we do that, for England and North Wales. For the moment, North Wales want it back, so we will give it back to them in a couple of years' time. Hey, we don't want to do it. And we are also part of the UK Transplant, so we do organise all the solid organ transplantation as well, so that's why we call blood and transplant. Graham talked about branding. We do have a brand in the NHSBT, and that's our vision: saving and improving lives, and that's the core to all our thinking. Whatever we do is saving and improving lives. A few numbers to just show how what we do. Whole units of blood, 2.1 million donations a year. We make around about 310,000 adult therapeutic doses of platelets every year. Plasma, we make, as you see there, 270k FFP. We don't, in the UK, as you're well aware, we've got variant CJD in the UK, so we don't use our plasma for fractionation like you do here. We only make single-use clinical FFP and cryo. Around about 3,700 organ transplants a year, around 4,800 tissue donors, and we've got around about 1,600 cord donations banked at the moment. At the moment, we actually only have 2 testing sites, one in Bristol and one in Manchester. We have 5 manufacturing sites. They're the sites that actually make the red cells, the platelets, etc. And we have 15 stockholding units. I'll come into stockholding units a little bit later on. So that's where we are now, and hopefully I'll try and show how we got to that stage in a little while. This is a map of the UK, if you've never been there. Where is it? That's where I live, down there. It's a big red line on my wife's house at the moment. Graham lives way up here. So, testing sites. Filton here. You saw the picture of Filton. You saw me in the hard hat, looking silly like everybody else does, and Dorothy, who's our Abbott representative. That was the bare shell. That's 1,000 square metres of bare shell where we put stuff into. That was a new build, opened 3 years ago, 2 years in the making. £60 million in budget, and under time. We think, anyway, I'm sure it was. Our other testing site is in Manchester, up here. And the other processing sites, one in Colindale in North London, one in Sheffield, one in Newcastle. We also do processing in Manchester and Filton as well. I won't go through all the 15 stockholding units, but they are the original blood transfusion centres which we had when I first started 36 years ago. So they ranged from within Cambridge, Lancaster up here, Plymouth down here, Oxford around here somewhere. My geography's not that good. So Birmingham there, so there's big change from what we were to where we are now. Graham said, does anybody know exactly how much a unit of blood costs? Well, we do. We've actually calculated it. So it costs us £432 million per year to produce 2 million donations of blood. And that's what we spend, that's what we get in, and that's what we spend. Not a penny less and not a penny more. We are a non-profit organisation, so it's all got to stay. You asked me the question earlier on, how much testing cost? Testing there, £19 million it costs us to do testing. Cheap, very cheap. Considering what it used to cost us along the years, that is actually a very, very good saving. So you will get a copy of this presentation, so you can have a look at it at your leisure, going through the breakdown of what is cost in there. So this is just really showing what we do at the 2 sites, the numbers of donations, so approximately 2.1 million donations a year. Oops. Right, so let's start the journey. Back in 2007, we started a strategic review. We had consultants come in, a lovely company called McKinsey, in the UK. I'm sure some of you have probably heard of it. There's a few people nodding here, so obviously heard of them. They do a lot of work with the NHS, but that's where we started. Graham's yawning there because he knows McKinsey. Like. So we had 4 work streams which we looked at. As I said, that we actually do the whole supply chain in NHSBT. So we start from collection of the blood all the way to delivery of the blood to the hospitals and to the customers. So started off looking at supply chain, the estates, the donor end, specialist services, and planning and implementation. So what, again, Graham said the 5 whys. We asked ourselves the 5 whys all the time. If ever you work with Graham, you will get fed up of him saying this. Why? But it's believe me, I've been through it. That is the only way. Ask yourself every single step of the stage, why am I doing this? Can I do it any better? And that's what we did. I don't know whether it's like in Greece, but demand in the UK for red cells has actually been steadily falling. In fact, in the last 5 years, demand has actually fallen in the region of about 14 to 15%. Our income is mainly from red cells, so actually our income's falling because the demand is actually falling. So how do we address that? Why? Why is that happening, and how can we address that? We needed to be a lot more flexible. New and emerging viruses, new tests that we have to do, new things that come along, we need to be flexible. We cannot afford to wait 3 years or wait 5 years or do this or not do it at all anymore. Our government, everybody else wants us to do it straight away. It's got to be done. Space, that's the big thing. Have you got enough space to do it in? We had 15 sites, which some of them were built back in the 1940s and 50s. Is it the space good enough, or should we build new stuff? So that's where we started off looking at the issues we needed to address. As I said, demand was reducing. In 2001, we collected 2.3 million red cells. 2006, 1.9. We're down to about 1.8 now. So it's actually going even further down. And like I said, not all our facilities were good enough. Some of them were not suitable, and we had lots of problems with our regulatory. We talked about regulatory, and our lovely people from the MHRA in the UK were beginning to now ask questions about our facilities, if they're actually good enough to actually make safe blood. As I said, we used to have 10 processing and pressing sites. Before that, we had 15, but I will start at 10. One of the things that when we started looking at, we had the same amount of equipment, the same space, the same numbers of staff in 2001 doing 2.3 million as we were doing in 2007, only doing 1.9 million. So you can see that there's a huge excess there just on what we were doing before. And that excess capacity, obviously the decline dropped. And then we move on to the next one. Oops, sorry, next one down there. So just some of the things that we asked the question, the whys. What is our capacity? What were we doing? What can we do? What can we do in the future? Detailed analysis. We looked at ourselves very closely. We looked at other people. We went and visited other blood services that had done consolidation. For example, Amsterdam. They've got a very good model where they're down to 1 site now. So we looked at a lot of things. We started looking at the estate suitability. I'll show you a couple of slides later on, but there's some very complex slides and very complex calculations and various things to actually decide which were the best sites and which was the best way to do it. The big important thing for you guys, some of you guys sitting probably at the front, is cost benefit. What does this all mean to me? At the end of the day, I'm going to do all this. What is the benefit to us? How much money am I going to save? So, outcomes were that our capacity, way over capacity. And then we started looking at staff, we started looking at space, and we started looking at equipment. We started looking at the bottlenecks and the benchmarking ourselves with other blood services. You all know what a benchmarking is. I don't know why I left that slide in there. This is some of the numbers that I won't go through this. You can have a look at it. It's at your leisure when you see the presentation. But these are real numbers, the real numbers of stuff that was going through these centres. And then when we've done the analysis, this is what we thought that we could actually get through just by keeping the same staff, same space, same equipment. That's what we could actually get through there if we improved our processes and worked and reduced the capacity. So you can see in processing, at least 25% over, and in testing even more, 44% over capacity. Machines were sitting there idle. They were starting work at 8 o'clock in the morning. By lunchtime, they were turned off and sitting there doing nothing. Not efficient. Why? Keep saying why, Graham, sorry. Again, we started looking at our sites, and we started looking at what's going to come up in the future. More automation. You know, we need to have sites where we can put automation in there, where we can actually improve the process and improve the process flows. You saw the pictures of me in Filton. That lab is one big square laboratory. Everything in testing is in there. It's so much more efficient. The flow of the work and the flow that Graham's shown was actually our lab in Filton, where the way that the work flows with the samples coming in one end, going through the flow and out the other end. I won't go through that one. Again, this is an example of some of the things that we were looking at, and we were trying to score each of our sites to find out which was the best site to actually move into. And we came up with, obviously, Manchester, because that's where it's open now, and obviously, where's it gone? Where's Bristol gone? It's not on there because Bristol was closed then. Let's move on to money. We all hate money working in our profession, but unfortunately, as Graham said, we are a business now. It took me a little while to get my head around it, but we are a business now. We're not a service. We're not a charity. We are a business. We should be running our service business-like to actually get the best value for money for our patients. Remember, the money that we use to do all this is taxpayers' money, so we should be using it wisely. Every pound that we spend in the UK, and it's actually in our annual report, if you want to have a look at it, our chief executive says, for every pound that we spend in NHSBT is a pound that's not gone to a patient on the front line getting treatment. So we looked at various things like, you know, one-off cost redundancy. I know that it's not a nice subject to discuss, but you're going to have to discuss that, so you will have to. Another one is, how long did it take to get paid? Obviously, the one-off cost redundancies and things like that is expensive, but how long before we actually get our money back? And we actually think that we got our money back within 2 to 3 years, which I think, if you worked in business, that's a fairly good model. Again, it's an example of some of the data that we looked at. Back in 2007, when we did that, we actually thought that three testing sites was the best we could get to. Since then, that graph now goes down here, so it's an awful lot better with 2 testing sites. As I said, we just didn't look at testing or processing. We looked at a lot of other things. One thing that we needed to make sure is whatever we did still gave the same service to our hospitals, the same service to our customers, the same level of safety that we've always had, if not better. So we made sure whatever we did in the supply chain, going across there, ensured that everything that we did, the testing times, the processing times, still made our times that we needed now. We needed to make sure that we got enough capacity. And we needed to also, as you can see, that we consolidated. The first thing was say, well, how did you get blood from A to B? It must cost you a fortune in transport. I'll show you what we did shortly. Is that Graham's? It's not yours, Graham, is it? No, good boy. Whoever's it is, turn it off. I'll turn mine off. Okay. We actually, the cost of transport is actually the same, if not lower, than what we did before, even though we're transporting stuff before. We are very green in the UK, and blood mileage is a big thing, and so the amount of miles that a pint of blood does is very important to us. We still need to look at that sort of stuff. This is a very busy slide, but I just wanted it sort of in one slide shows how we work. So if I will go through it very briefly, when you can have a look at this in a bit more detail, and if everyone wants to buy me a beer, I can talk about this for quite some time afterwards. We collect blood from collection sites, so there may be mobile sites or static sites. That blood is transported to a stockholding unit. That stockholding unit will get blood from several collection areas. That stockholding unit collates all the blood, samples, paperwork from all from the collection sites and bonds them and puts them into a cage. That's then sent to the processing site. As it happens, this is slightly out of date because the processing and testing sites are the same now. So they all go to, the processing sites, the two main ones, and the samples go to there. They're all processed, tested, everything else that we do, and then goes back out to the issuing centre, which actually is the stockholding centre, and then that issue centre then issues to the hospitals which are within a 2-hour radius of where the stockholding units are. So that's basically our model of how we work. Just a word on regulatory requirements. Graham has said it, but again, very, very important. We must meet all our regulatory requirements. I think it's law, I've got to say this in every presentation, so I'm saying it now. We do need to meet all our requirements, and we need to meet all our customers' expectations. So, have we done it? Well, we think we have. We think we have. I think we've now got 2 sites where we've maintained the most flexible estate, the state that can be most useful in the future, whatever comes on. We've made really good use of that space. We've maximised all the capacity that we've got. We've reduced costs. If I give you a number, I've not put it on a slide because I think my chief exec might moan at me if I did, but just to give you an example, post-consolidation we gave £30 million back to the NHS. How many hip replacements, how many heart transplants does £30 million give? That's a huge amount of money back in frontline health service, so they're very grateful. Well, I should have said as well, beginning, the cost of our unit of our blood in NHSBT to the hospitals, and I won't say cost, it's a service charge. They're not buying blood, they're paying for basically what it costs us to produce it, is £122, which is, what's that in euros? About 200 odd euros, something like that. In 2007 it was £144, so that's 260 odd euros, so we've actually reduced the price of blood. So not only are we giving money back to the NHS, we are continuing to save them money by reducing their blood budgets. And as you know, a lot of their blood budgets are probably the highest budget they've got within some of the hospitals. So I think we've done a fairly good job so far. I won't go through this one. This just really shows some of the complexities that you're going to have to deal with when you start moving things around. It's not just the blood, it's all the samples and what temperature you're going to transport it in, all the paperwork, etc. There's quite a lot of things to think about. What we came up with is what we call a bulk movement vehicle. So we have this van, and I'll show you one in a minute, where it goes to the collection sites and collects the stockholding units and collects all the blood that's been collected that day and put it in the back of the van, and that van's at room temperature, or around about 21 degrees, or as it is in England at the moment, about 4 degrees, but it's room temperature, ambient temperature, which is the way it should be to be transported back for processing. It comes back to the centre. We then plug it in, and then the inside of the van goes back to 4 degrees. So that van now then transports all the blood at 4 degrees back to the hospitals ready for issue. So this van is never empty. It's always got blood in it, either at 22 degrees or at 4 degrees. Really efficient way of using it. You can't buy these from the garage down the road. You have to get them made from a basic thing, but we lease ours, and it's a very, very good. I think, what did I say, Graham, last night? We've got about a dozen of these, I think, for the whole country, and they're running around all day and all night. And that's our very happy transport manager taking delivery of his 3 bulk things from a little commercial there, Imperial Commercials, DAF, if you want to go and buy one. I don't even know how much they are. Just a little bit about the way that we implemented it. As usual, we have to have a complicated system within NHS, and we have what we call a change control board, which is led by our managing director and chief executive, and then below that various project groups, and then local project teams that were picked out from the local sites onwards. Emergency planning, this is also something very, very dear to our hearts. I was going to a meeting in Germany I can't remember when it was, June last year, only to get a phone call to say that Filton, our biggest site doing 1.2 million donations a year, was flooded. Can't test, can't process, can't do anything. We have got an emergency plan which is about this thick, and it rolled into action, and we didn't lose 1 unit of blood. We managed to move all the testing, all the processing to Manchester and the other processing sites. All the stockholding units, all the stock was moved out of there. So emergency planning, I won't go through all this that goes through there. Is this slide 32, Graham? I think it is. I think I have got this. A colleague of mine spotted my one error when I actually say that there's, it might be the next one. Yeah. I've said 3 sites instead of 2, but anyway. But emergency planning, when you consolidate, that's one thing that you really are going to have to think about and make sure that if you do have a problem with one site, that another site can do it. Centralized IT is one of the big things you need to do, and I think you're going to get that anyway, so it's good. As I said, IT is one of the biggest things you're going to have to do. If there's anything that's going to ruin a project, it's IT. IT people don't like me saying that, but it always is. So make sure you've got a good IT people on your thing. Again, we asked the question why, and I was talking to Kostas today about, oops, sorry. Do you really need to work 24/7? We used to have an evening shift which tested blood that came in from the collection sites that evening. We asked ourselves, why do we need to do that? When do we need the results for those samples? The answer is we don't. We don't need them till the next day. So why are we working in the evening? Well, the reason we worked in the evening is to make the day shift a bit easier to do. I'm paying all this money for people to come in till midnight to do this testing. I don't actually need it, so we stopped it. We don't work 24/7 anymore. We just work 2 shifts. So ask yourselves those questions. Excuse me. The hard stuff is easier than the soft stuff. The hard stuff, putting machines in, knocking walls down, getting Abbott to come in and plug things in is easy. That is really the easy bit. The hard bit, the soft stuff, that's the hardest thing. And as I said, change management is one of the biggest things that you need to work on. And you need to consult with your staff. You need to consult with your customers. Hospitals were very, very anti us consolidation. They thought, oh, we're never going to get our blood on time. It's never happened. They've always got their blood on time. So think about your customers when you're doing this. This probably comes out of every textbook on managing change anywhere, managing the concerns and expectations of all stakeholders and understand and mitigate the risk. You all know that. It's in every single book, and you all know that because you're good managers anyway. Management for change, obviously clear policies. You need to have a sound rationale. Why the hell are you doing this? Keep asking yourself why, but come up with a sound rationale that everybody understands and everybody can understand. Talk to them early. We got probably some of the lessons that we learned. We didn't talk to some of these people early enough, to some of the people in the labs, and you do get pushback when they don't understand what's going on and they weren't involved early. Get them involved early. So I guess they all know now that you're consolidating to 4 sites. Not throwing things at me now. This is your notification. Again, key people. We had some really, really good project leads and project managers working on these things. There were real project managers to work out to do this. And probably the most important person, except for, that's me, project manager and project lead, that's me. The HR person dealt with all the staff stuff that was difficult to do. Talked a bit about money. We measure ourselves. I don't know if you're part of the European Blood Alliance, so are you not a part of them? You should be. I'll introduce you. There are productivity measures within testing and in processing, and our aim is to be in the upper quartile. I think this is in 2010. So these are the numbers. Productivity is basically the numbers of packs you process or the number of samples you test, divided by the number of people you've got working in the laboratory. So our forecast in testing, is 18,750. I know that is in the upper top quartile. It's actually close to the top. We're actually at 22,000 at the moment. So we're way above it, and we're very close to our Dutch colleagues who say that they're at the top. Money. Let's talk about money a little bit more. When we first started doing that in 2009, just in testing, this is. My battery's gone from me. Oh, there it is. We saved £2 million. We're continually saving these big sums, and we've already saved, just in testing alone, 11 million over the last 2 or 3 years. That's actually probably a real underestimate. We've actually now consolidated to 2 sites, and I know that we're saving at least another $1 million on top of that. So it does show, it shows in real hard cash that we're actually saving a lot of money. So, in summary, I'm sure you're fed up of listening to me now. For NHSBT, it was a success story. I lived through it, I lived through the pain, but I'm still here to talk to you about it. And I still got a little bit of hair, but I did have a full head of hair, and I wasn't grey before I started, but I still got a little bit left. We've, all the financial benefits that we thought we actually realised. Most importantly, no increase in quality incidents. In fact, we've actually got a reduction in quality incidents. We don't have anywhere near the quality incidents we used to have. And no increase in customer complaints. So that's the hospitals coming back and complaining they don't get the blood on time. Again, so everything is a big success story. As I said, I don't speak Greek. I hope this means thank you for your attention. Enjoy the rest of your conference, and I'll take any questions. This is Google Translate. If it says something completely different, I do apologise if it's rude. So thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the excellent presentation. I think that really the presentations were hot topics for us. Now we have time for questions. Are there any questions for the audience? Professor Maniatis.
That's consolidation.
Oh, 1 second. He's running. He's running. He's running. He's not running. He's walking slowly. Sorry.
Does consolidation lead to a decreased number of staff?
Decreased number of staff?
Excuse?
Well, the honest answer, yes.
So that's the big problem in Greece.
But, depends how you want to play it. We did reduce a lot of staff, but it enabled us to do a lot of things that we weren't doing before because we didn't have time to do it, or the resources to do it, more into R&D, more into representation. I'm just shouting.
You can take the podium.
Not as loud as me.
So you mean the extra staff became involved in research? Is that what you're trying to say?
Various other things, yeah. We did a lot more. We're doing a lot more research than we did before.
So the
we're doing
people
more.
that you didn't need anymore for your everyday, were they dismissed or were they replaced?
Both. Both. Yes. We have to be honest with you. We did lose a number of staff through redundancy, through retirement, people that didn't want to go on any further. But I have to say that in the consolidations that we've done over the last few years, we've been very successful at redeploying people into other areas within not only NHSBT but NHS-wide in hospital laboratories. And I think, I haven't got the percentage on top of my head, but I think somewhere in the region of about 40% of the people that we would have had to pay redundancy for, we actually redeployed. So we've been very, very successful in actually keeping a lot, and keeping the good staff is really important, keep the good ones.
We baffled them with our science, or we baffled them with our translation. There's no questions.
As I said, if anybody wants to speak to us outside,
Is there any?
and not in front of the boss, we'll be more than happy to speak to you. It's not a problem.
Is there any other question, please? No.
Where was the vision was coming from? Where was the vision was coming from? Either to consolidate or to reduce costs or to do whatever you have succeeded to do.
Okay, I think we had a new chief executive in 2006, 2007. Price of blood was £144 per unit. And it was going up every single year, greater than inflation. Every time that we wanted to do something new, introduce a new test, or do some other safety measure, or do anything, a new building, price was going up. It was spiralling out of control. She very clearly said, this is unsustainable. I'm not going to have the price of blood at £144. I want it to come down to at least £120. We're almost there, only about 1 or 2 so far. So that was her vision at the end. So then we were saying, well, how do we do that? How the hell do we do that? When you look at it, you look at your fixed and your semi-fixed costs, staff, space, test kit costs, costs of running. So that's where we first started. And the aim now is to actually reduce that price of that blood down even further. As I said before, for every pound that the hospital is not giving us, it's using First Line service. But Graham will probably tell the business version.
The place that we started was to become more efficient. We had to be more, the labs had to be more efficient. Because we do things in a way that we've always done it that way, and it's inefficient. I can show you some prime examples. We rack and re-rack and put tubes in different areas. Why do we do that? So the original thought process was to save this money, was to look at the efficiencies of all the labs, and we looked at every single one of them. Before we looked at consolidation, we looked at how can we make you become more efficient and do things better, do things smarter, do things in a different way. Because, as I say, we all, regardless of which lab you work in, we all do things because we've always done it that way. Not because it's the right way, because it's always been done. And the trapped cash, the money that's in healthcare at the moment that we don't realise, it's hidden in there somewhere, that's what we try to find first. And that gets you to a certain level. And then beyond that, if you need to go further, consolidation takes you to the next level.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other question, please? May I ask you something? Are the NAT testing center the same with the serology testing center?
Yes, sorry, I should have made that clear. All our testing is in one lab. So serology, NAT is all in the same lab.
In the same lab?
Same area, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Just one other thing. Filton, the big thing.
Filton and Manchester.
1,000 square metres. To run that entire organisation is 80 staff, 80 whole-time equivalents working 6 days a week.
Okay.
Which is, compared to what we were used to be, and that's an awful lot of less people.
Is there any other question, please? If no, first of all, I would like to thank the speaker for the excellent presentation and all of them for your attention.
Thank you.